Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into one of the most shocking developments in Russia's ongoing war against Ukraine. Reports that tens of thousands of Russian soldiers are going AWOL, deserting their posts and abandoning the battlefield. This is not just a rumor or isolated incident. According to several reports and intelligence updates, up to 100 of Putin's troops have either gone missing, refused to fight, or fled from the front lines entirely. It's a crisis that reveals the true state of Russia's military morale, the chaos within its ranks, and how the war Putin started is slowly turning against him. From the very beginning of this war, Putin projected confidence. He believed that his so-called special military operation would last a few weeks. Russian forces were supposed to storm Kiev, overthrow the Ukrainian government, and claim victory before the West could even react. But more than 2 years later, the war has become a nightmare for the Kremlin. Russian troops are exhausted, commanders are overwhelmed, has turned into a quick victory that's draining long manpower and morale. Both manpower and morale. Recent reports suggest that Russian troops are deserting in record numbers. Many of them are conscripts who never wanted to fight in the first place. Others are contract soldiers who signed up for what they thought would be easy pay, but found themselves trapped in endless battles with poor leadership and little support. For some, the breaking point came after months of being thrown into suicidal assaults without proper equipment. For others, it's the sheer horror of what they've seen. Friends dying, no food, no rest, no plan. The Russian military, known for its strict discipline, is now struggling to maintain control. Commanders have been ordered to clamp down hard on deserters, with reports of entire units being locked in bunkers, or threatened with execution if they refuse to fight. Some soldiers say they're being monitored by barrier troops, units placed behind the front lines to shoot anyone who tries to retreat. This echoes the brutal tactics used by Stalin during World War II, but even that level of fear isn't enough to stop the collapse in morale. Across social media and intercepted communications, soldiers are complaining openly. They talk about corruption, about commanders stealing supplies, about being lied to by the Kremlin. They describe being sent to the front with no helmets, no warm clothing, and rifles from the 1980s. Many say they haven't been paid in months. Some even claim that they were tricked into signing contracts they couldn't cancel, effectively turning them into modern-day slaves of the Russian military machine. Families back home are also speaking out. Mothers and wives are demanding answers, asking why their sons are missing or why they haven't been allowed to come home after their contracts expired. The Kremlin, of course, denies everything, but the growing anger inside Russia is impossible to hide. Videos of grieving families and protests by soldiers' relatives are circulating online, despite Moscow's efforts to censor them. According to independent Russian journalists and Western intelligence, as many as 70,000 Russian troops are unaccounted for, missing, deserted, or captured. That number is staggering. To put it in perspective, that's more than an entire army corps simply vanishing from the battlefield. Even if some of them were killed or wounded, the scale of desertion and refusal to fight is something the Russian military hasn't seen since World War II. The reasons behind this mass desertion are clear. The war has dragged on far longer than anyone in Russia expected. The promised liberation of Ukraine has turned into a meat grinder. Ukraine's forces, bolstered by Western weapons and a strong sense of purpose, continue to resist fiercely. Every Russian offensive seems to cost thousands of lives for just a few meters of territory. Soldiers are beginning to realize that they are not liberators. They are occupiers in a war that many of them don't believe in. In some regions, entire battalions have reportedly refused to deploy. Soldiers are hiding in forests, escaping across borders, or paying bribes to military police to be listed as wounded. The black market for fake medical certificates has exploded in Russia as desperate men try to find any way to avoid being sent back to the front. Some have fled to countries like Kazakhstan, Armenia, or Georgia, joining thousands of other Russians trying to escape conscription. The Kremlin, of course, is desperate to stop the bleeding. Russian authorities have started cracking down on deserters with severe punishments. A new law signed by Putin increases prison sentences for those who refuse to fight, disobey orders, or surrender. Military police have been deployed across occupied territories to hunt down soldiers trying to escape. Yet, despite these harsh measures, the desertions continue to rise, because no matter how strict the punishment, soldiers who have lost faith in the cause and in their commanders simply don't want to die for nothing. Morale is collapsing not only among conscripts, but also among elite units. Even Wagner Group mercenaries, who once boasted of their toughness and loyalty, have faced massive losses and internal conflicts. Since Yevgeny Prigozhin's death, the private army has fractured, and many of its fighters have refused to return to the front lines under Kremlin control. The same is true for other volunteer battalions. Men who once fought for money or ideology now question whether the fight is worth it. Inside Russia, the government is trying to hide these problems. State TV continues to broadcast stories of victory and heroism, but the truth leaks out through the families of soldiers, through independent media, and through the growing silence of regions that used to celebrate their heroes. Funerals are held quietly. Military recruitment offices are burned, and resentment toward Moscow is spreading. Some experts say that Putin's biggest enemy isn't NATO or Ukraine. It's his own soldiers losing faith in him. The Kremlin can draft new men, but it can't manufacture loyalty. When soldiers no longer believe in the mission, no amount of propaganda can save a war effort. And that's exactly what's happening now. The Russian army, once feared for its size, is hollowing out from within. It's also becoming clear that Russia's military logistics are stretched to the breaking point. Supplies are running low, fuel shortages are increasing, and the chain of command is collapsing. Commanders on the front line often can't communicate with headquarters for days. This has created chaos, troops being sent into battles without coordination, units running out of ammunition, and soldiers dying because medical evacuation isn't possible. The Ukrainian side, on the other hand, is exploiting these weaknesses masterfully. Ukrainian drone strikes, sabotage operations, and precision artillery have destroyed countless Russian positions. Every time Russia tries to regroup, Ukraine hits their supply lines, command centers, and transport hubs. This constant pressure is driving more Russian soldiers to abandon their posts. They know the next strike could be their last, and many decide it's better to take their chances fleeing than to die in a hopeless war. Western intelligence suggests that Russian commanders are even falsifying reports to hide the extent of desertions. They mark missing soldiers as killed in action or captured by the enemy, just to avoid scrutiny. But these lies only delay the inevitable, a reckoning inside the Russian military. You can't fight a modern war when your own troops don't trust you. As morale continues to collapse, discipline follows. Drunkenness, looting, and infighting have become rampant in Russian units. There are stories of soldiers turning on their officers, of friendly fire incidents, and of units refusing to follow orders altogether. What was once a tightly controlled army is now more like a disorganized collection of armed men trying to survive. The situation has gotten so bad that some Russian officials are now quietly admitting that the country's manpower crisis is unsustainable. Recruiting new soldiers is becoming harder. The number of volunteers has dropped sharply, and the forced mobilizations have triggered mass resistance, even in rural areas which used to provide a steady stream of recruits, or families are hiding their sons or sending them abroad. Economically, this is another ticking time bomb for the Kremlin. Every soldier who deserts, every family that loses faith, every mother who protests, all of it weakens Putin's grip on power. The war is draining not only Russia's military but also its society. Factories can't produce enough equipment. Inflation is rising, and the illusion of Russian invincibility has been shattered. Internationally, these desertions have damaged Russia's reputation even further. Allies like North Korea and Iran may continue to provide weapons, but they can't fix the internal rot of Russia's military. Even China, once seen as a silent supporter, has grown more cautious. No one wants to back a losing side, and right now Putin's army is looking increasingly like one. The growing wave of desertions also raises serious questions about how long Russia can sustain this war. Even if Moscow continues mobilization, it can't replace 700 missing troops overnight. Training new soldiers takes months, and those replacements are often poorly prepared. Many are sent to the front with barely any instruction, only to face death or surrender within days. Meanwhile, Ukrainian morale remains strong. Soldiers fighting for their homeland are motivated in ways that invaders never can be. Every Russian desertion gives Ukraine more confidence and more opportunities. The tide of the war may not shift overnight, but the psychological advantage is clearly moving toward Kiev. In the long run, these desertions could mark a turning point. History has shown that when armies begin to disintegrate from within, defeat is inevitable. From Napoleon's retreat from Russia to the fall of the Soviet Union in Afghanistan, military collapses often start with desertion and end with political change. And that's what might be happening now. Putin is facing a crisis that no amount of propaganda or fear can solve. His army is bleeding, not just from Ukrainian bullets, but from its own soldiers walking away. This is not a sign of temporary weakness. It's the symptom of a deeper failure, a war built on lies, corruption, and the suffering of ordinary men who never wanted to fight. As the months go on, we'll likely see the Kremlin try to cover up the truth, to downplay the scale of desertions and the growing unrest. But history will remember this moment as the time when Russia's military machine began to break apart. The question now is not whether Putin can win, but how long he can keep pretending that he hasn't already lost the loyalty of his own army. This war has shown us that even the strongest looking regimes can crumble when their foundations are built on fear. The Russian army may have tanks, missiles, and endless propaganda, but without the will to fight, those tools mean nothing. The men on the ground know it, and one by one, they're choosing to leave rather than die for a cause that no longer makes sense. So as we watch these developments unfold, one thing becomes clear. Russia's war in Ukraine is not just a battle for territory. It's a battle for the soul of a nation, and right now that soul is bleeding out on the front lines. Thank you for watching, everyone. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth updates and analysis on the ongoing conflict and its global consequences. Stay tuned, because the story of this war and the collapse within Putin's ranks is far from over.